Hello students, here's your science tutor, Nishat. Well, today let us study by exploring this room. What can you see in this room around? Well, there are many things in this room, right? There is a sofa, there's a table, there are books in the stand, there is a plant pot. But there is one thing common in all these things. Can you guess what's that? Well, that is, all these things occupy some space in this room, right? And all these things can even be weighed. That means they have some mass. And thus, all these things are called as matter. And that is what we are going to study about today. Matter in our surroundings. In chemistry, anything that has mass and occupies space is called as matter. Now, is the stone a matter? Yes, it is. It occupies space and it has mass also. So, yes, it is a matter. Now, is water a matter? Yes, it is. For example, water occupies space in your water bottle and it has mass. So, yes, water is also a matter. Now, is air a matter? Of course, it is around us. But have you ever thought that the air would occupy space and it would have some mass? Now, for example, there's an empty balloon. So, when we check its weight, it weighs around 0.5 grams. Now, we shall blow air in this balloon and check its weight again. The weight shows to be 1 gram. Now, how did the mass or the weight of this balloon increase? Did this balloon eat something? Well, no. That is because of the air that we have blown in this balloon. So, the air has occupied the space in the balloon and it also has mass, because of which the weight or the mass of balloon had also increased. So, this shows that air is also a matter. In fact, each and everything around us which has mass and occupies space is called as matter. Well, now that we know what matter is, let us see what matter is actually made up of. Matter is made up of very tiny particles. They are so tiny that we cannot even see it with our naked eyes. Well, to check that out, let us perform a simple activity. So I have 3 beakers before me filled with water and I have crystals of potassium permanganate. Now we shall put 1 or 2 crystals of potassium permanganate in the first beaker of water. So when we dissolve it, what can you see? Well, on dissolving, we can see that the color of water has turned to pink. This indicates that the crystal of potassium permanganate has divided itself into several tiny particles, and due to which the color of water has turned pink. Now, let us take few ml of the solution from first beaker and transfer it to the next beaker containing plain water. What can you see? Well, we can see that the color has been imparted in the second beaker also. Let us take few ml of solution from the second beaker and transfer it to the third one. Well, we can see that the color of water in the third beaker has also changed. Though the color is light, but still it is visible. So this indicates that the crystal of potassium permanganate had divided itself into several tiny particles. So by this activity, we can understand that the matter is made up of millions of tiny particles that cannot be even seen with our naked eyes. Now that we know the matter is made up of millions of tiny particles, let us understand the characteristics of these tiny particles. So the first characteristic of the particle states that they have spaces between them. That is, the particles of a matter have space between them. So for that, we will perform another simple activity. I have a beaker filled with approximately 25 ml of water. Now for this, I will add a spoon of sugar and dissolve it. Now the sugar has completely dissolved in this water. But surprisingly, the level of water in the beaker has not increased in spite of adding sugar. Then where did this sugar go? Well, that is because the particles of water in the beaker had some space between them, and the particles of sugar occupied that spaces between the water molecules and completely got dissolved, and hence the water level did not increase. So this simple activity proves us that the particles of matter have space between them. Now, the second characteristic of particle states that the particles of matter are continuously moving. Well, to understand this characteristic of particle, there is a very simple example of an incense stick. Of course, you, me, majority of people like the smell of incense stick, right? Incense stick is nothing but the agarbatti that we light in our homes. So whenever we put an incense stick in one corner of the house, the smell of it can be sensed everywhere in the house. Well, why is that so? This activity itself tells us that the particles are in continuous motion. Particles are continuously moving. So this is the second characteristic of particle, which states the particles of matter are continuously moving. The third characteristic of particle states that the particles of matter attract each other. There is some force of attraction between the particles of matter. Now we can understand this statement by another example. Suppose we take a nail, a chalk and a rubber band. Let us try to break these things either by hammering or stretching. Which of these would break easily? Well, of course, the chalk. But why is it hard to break the nail? That is because the particles of nail have force of attraction between them, and because of which it is hard to break the nail. The forces of attraction between the particles of matter may vary depending upon its state. So this is the third characteristic of particle, which states that the particles of matter have a force of attraction between them, or the particles of matter attract each other. So children, so far we have seen what matter is and what matter is made up of. In fact, we have also seen how tiny the particles can be. And we studied the further few characteristics of these tiny particles. So let us continue this chapter in the next video.